The most important part in storytelling is how you construct the story. And there are certain important things that we require in a story. And why do we need to tell a story? When you're writing report or when you are projecting or presenting something, you will have to present it in a way that people not only listen to you, but they learn from it. Storytelling is the best way of teaching. And in a cognitive paradigm, they also believe that your mind is literary. That is, we understand the world in terms of stories. So if something is presented in terms of stories, it will be easily remembered. You can convince people easily with the help of stories. So normally, what is a story? What we have to consider when we are telling a story. Now, what was the problem in our story? Our story was more of a journalistic nature, that there is information and information and information and information. There is no emotional attachment. Like as a reader, if I'm reading this story, where will I attach myself? When will I feel that, oh, this is the important point I should pay attention to? So this is where the storytelling becomes important. That you will have to present things. It is not necessarily in a linear order. And there is a beginning, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened, then this happened. You can tell the same story in a first person. Okay, that there is a very successful social worker, and he now wins the Nobel Prize of Peace. But it was not an easy journey. And you talk about how what kind of problems he is facing and faced. So you talk about how something is achieved, who has achieved that, and what did that person has achieved. There are different ways of presenting it, constructing. How do you construct it? So your construction becomes important there. So first thing that you have to check for is actionable checklist before, to make sure you thought of everything. Some of the best story writers in the world, they go with the assumption that before you start writing your story, you should know what should be the end of your story. So you have to check whether you have all the relevant material to talk about in the story. So when you are writing a report, when you are writing your thesis, then also you have to write these things. You have to check whether you have all the information that you can present accurately. So first thing, that is control. Now what is control? There is a reader for whom you are writing the story or for whom you are telling the story. And there is a storyteller who is telling the story. You are the storyteller. Now, there are various story elements. For example, the time, story time. Who controls the story time? Okay. That is the time when the story can be experienced. So who controls it? The reader controls it. Reader will decide when I'm going to read the story. Choice. Who controls the choices within the story? What should come in the story? That is in the hand of storyteller. Place, where who picks where the story is going to unfold? Again, this is the storyteller. Okay. There are different aspects. One is you give description of something. Second is through that description you introduce certain characters or certain events, but you don't keep all those characters and events open. So in the right time in the process of story, you keep unfolding them one by one. Okay. You don't expose all your characters and all your events in the very beginning. In our story, from the very beginning, we did that. we exposed there was a social worker, and he wanted to do something good. So there are very limited choices of suspense, very limited choices of the interest that the person can bring to the story. And the length of the story. Who decides what is the length of the episode or the whole story? Within one story, you can have multiple episodes. So you will have to decide how many episodes you want to incorporate. Now, everything is in the hand of the storyteller. So basically, it is the storyteller who will control the story, various story elements. आप लोगों ने ये फिल्म देखी थी रणवीर कपूर वाली तमाशा? तमाशा फिल्म देखी आप लोगों ने? Deepika Padukone and Ranveer Kapoor was
Yes,
there.
sir.
Can you tell me what was the movie about?
सर एक्चुअली बहुत बोरिंग मूवी थी तो याद नहीं है क्या था.
Very good. अगर इम्तियाज अली ये सुन लेगा तो सुसाइड कर लेगा वो. उसकी लाइफ की सबसे इम्पोर्टेंट फिल्म है जिसको आप बोल रहे हो बहुत बोरिंग फिल्म थी.
सर बट एक्चुअली देखा जाए तो बहुत बोरिंग थी.
अच्छा, तो क्या बोर कर रहा था आपको फिल्म में? जैसे फिल्म में कुछ चीजें इंटरेस्ट देती है वैसे कुछ चीजें ही बोर करती है. व्हाट वाज दैट बोरिंग एलिमेंट?
सर द
क्यों?
कंटेंट इटसेल्फ वाज बोरिंग.
नहीं, कंटेंट वाज ओके, वाज गुड. The tempo of the story was very slow. That was the problem with the film. और the conclusion भी गलत था. Why I recommended that film only, why I talked about that, okay? It is about storytelling. That when you tell a story, what kind of changes that you can create in the process of storytelling. So being a storyteller, you have to think about it. But normally the stories are same. There is a hero, there is a villain, there is a conflict between hero and villain, and ultimately hero wins. Or there is a hero, there is a heroine. They like each other, they want to get married, but there is some problem. So ultimately the problem gets solved. अल्टीमेटली और कुछ नहीं होता स्टोरी में, सब यही है. लेकिन वो जो छोटी सी स्टोरी है कि हीरो है और विलन है, उनके बीच में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, या हीरो और हीरोइन है, उनके बीच में कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है, उसको आप कैसे प्रेजेंट करते हो, वहां पर आपका स्टोरी टेलिंग आता है. सो द मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट ऑफ द स्टोरी इज द कॉन्फ्लिक्ट. जो मैन कैरेक्टर है उसका या तो खुद के साथ या किसी और के साथ या भगवान के साथ, नेचर के साथ उसका कॉन्फ्लिक्ट होता है, होना चाहिए. तब जाकर आपकी स्टोरी क्लाइमेक्स तक जाएगी. नहीं तो एक फ्लैट मैनर में चलेगी स्टोरी, उसमें कुछ नया नहीं आएगा. So normally these are the three things: who is against who. You have hero, you have opponent, and you have an object. So both hero and opponent wants to achieve this object. So they are in direct conflict because of this object. This object could be आपको खजाना चाहिए, आपको हीरोइन चाहिए, कुछ भी. आपको प्रेस्टीज चाहिए, आपको पर्टिकुलर पोजीशन चाहिए. So that is this object that you want to achieve. Is someone who tries to get something or achieve a certain goal. An opponent, the hero is most easily defined when juxtaposed to some external forces like time or other character seeking the same object. So it's not always there has to be some other character. It can be time, it can be some other circumstances. कि जैसे इकबाल फिल्म थी कि जिसमें हीरो था उसको क्रिकेटर बनना था, तो उसमें ओपोनेंट क्या था, उसकी पॉवर्टी, उसकी सोशियो इकोनॉमिक कंडीशन, वो उसका ओपोनेंट था जिसके सामने उसको लड़ना था. So there is no conflict if there is nothing to seek or gain. We need an object that holds a specific value within the story. And for the hero and opponent. So this is the object that keeps everybody together, everyone and everything together. And this is the thing that the reader is also interested in. आप लोगों ने मिर्जापुर पार्ट 1 देखा है, सीरीज 1 मिर्जापुर का? हाँ ना?
यस सर, देखा है.
यस सर देखा.
हाँ, तो उसमें वेरी फर्स्ट सीन जब मुन्ना भैया वो शादी में डांस करते उससे पहले एक सीन आता है, वो कंपाउंडर होता है, वो शराब लेने के लिए वहाँ जाता है और वो मुन्ना भैया जो है वो गाड़ी के सामने खड़े होते हैं। और वहाँ पर वो जो बेसिक कॉन्फ्लिक्ट है वो वहाँ डिफाइन हो जाता है, और पूरी सीरीज दोनों पार्ट, सीरीज 1 सीरीज 2, वो उससे दूर नहीं जाते हैं। तो नेक्स्ट टाइम व्हेन यू वॉच यू चेक इट, what was the actual theme of that particular series. Okay. Then it requires drama. How will you incorporate drama? So drama builds when you increase the odds. जैसे हमने यहाँ बोला था कि people did not support him or government did not support him, so that is drama, but you have to make it high end drama. Every time you increase the odd, the viewer or listener is more and more unsure of the outcome. Doubt is a storytelling weapon. You have to create the doubt. तो जब लोग सोशल वर्कर को सपोर्ट नहीं करते तो लोग इज नॉट अ प्रॉब्लम, सोशल वर्कर के माइंड में डाउट आना चाहिए कि क्या मैं सच में इनको हेल्प करूं, मुझे करनी चाहिए. सो दैट क्रिएट्स द ड्रामा. व्हेन गवर्नमेंट डजंट हेल्प, so that's not the problem. The kind of conflict that the social worker is facing, that it is basically the duty of the government to help the people and solve the problems, but the government is not ready to do it. Why would I bother about it? So एक moral ethical conflict आएगा, dilemma आएगा, where you can start the drama. So dramatic arc, build the tension gradually, and remember that loss that occurs early in the narrative only increases the tension later. If you lose something in the beginning, that helps you in developing the story better. The rule is simple in second dramatic arc. The next conflict has to be bigger than the previous, and with a bang, not a whimper. Okay. हम लोगों ने दोनों कॉन्फ्लिक्ट की बात की लेकिन उसको ड्रामाटाइज नहीं किया. स्टोरी बनाने के लिए उसे ड्रामाटाइज करना पड़ेगा. Information, you have to give the details. Okay. So what do you show and what do you hide? These are the four possibility. Expose, you reveal something, or you hide, or you put certain small cues so that the reader while reading can connect the dots. The stories are not about telling, they are about hiding something till the right moment. The imbalance of knowledge between the storyteller and the listener is what drives the story. So how much information you give and how much information you hide is more important in storytelling. So you can choose to expose the information, disclose the end of the story in the very beginning, कि आप रिवर्स ऑर्डर में शुरू करो कि उसको ऑलरेडी नोबेल प्राइज मिल गया है, तो आपको पता है, रीडर को पता है बिगिनिंग में कि वो सक्सेसफुल है, लेकिन वो कैसे सक्सेसफुल हुआ वो स्टोरी आपको बतानी है. Reveal, you would be able to show the information indirectly, so through the story cues. Or hide, you could omit crucial information altogether. Okay. वो एकदम एंड में ही पता चलेगा. Or interfere, you might hint at the fact that the information is there but not allowed to see it fully. So you don't make it very open for the reader. They'll have to use their mind to identify that information. Archetype. So what are the archetypes we use? Good versus evil. Normal story में ये होता है. Effort versus inaction. So social work की story में हमें ये particular archetype use करना पड़ेगा. Effort versus inaction. Known versus unknown. That can also be useful. Obscurity versus success. फॉर एग्जाम्पल घर में भी सब लोग उससे नफरत करते थे, कोई उसको ध्यान नहीं देता था, तो वो ऑब्सक्योरिटी है. एंड देन देयर इज अ सक्सेस, एवरीबॉडी इज आफ्टर हिम. करप्शन वर्सेस प्योरिटी. सो दीज आर द आर्किटाइप्स, दीज आर द बाइनरी ऑपोजिशन वी यूज इन स्टोरीज. Channels, how we present it. Showing versus telling. That is, you show the events, this is happening, or you write that this is what he is thinking, this is what he is doing. The redundancy is a scene in a story. Redundancy means same thing coming again and again. Use the channels in such a way that they would contribute but not duplicate. Sort out what information is being represented or presented in which channel, and how the overall narrative becomes more than sum of its parts. So there has to be not just the basic meaning of the story, but also some extensional meanings, okay, some symbolic meaning, some message should be there. Time. Normally, story begins here in the middle. Story moves forward as well as backward. You talk about flashback, you talk about dreams, you talk about aspirations, which will go in the backward, and what actions that he or she is doing, which will go in forward. So if you are making a story just about moving forward, it's not a story because you are not developing the character.